We're constantly being pushed to provide the next generation technology for the warfighter. Because we've had a historical track record of success and very high energy density, power, and safety, we've just been brought in to programs over the years where we've had extreme success. But beyond the energy density, the powerful cells that we have, we also are the safest cells on the market globally.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of the DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with William Hadala, Vice President of Operations and Strategy at American Lithium Energy. William, thanks for chatting with me today.
Thank you for having me as a guest.
No, it's going to be exciting, and what a cool technology. So, start off, can you share a bit about, first of all, you're a veteran, I'll just get that out, which I totally appreciate. So thanks for your service. But share how you got from being in the Air Force to, the journey and experiences that now have you working as the VP of Ops at American Lithium Energy.
Thank you for that. So it's a great question. So got out of the Air Force at a time where the military was digitizing, and it was around 1993. And there was this new thing called the internet. And I lived in Southern California out in the San Fernando Valley. And before I knew it, I went back to school to get a technical engineering degree and wound up working for one of the largest integrated communications and marketing companies in the United States that just so happened to have all the clientele that was up in the Silicon Valley, plus private equity and some of the world's largest companies. And at that time, we were putting out the basic infrastructure as you know it today as the internet, building out fiber optic networks, miniaturization of mainframes, moving to things like AS400s and PBX systems, et cetera. And my skill set was always the ability to get very technical, but also speak at a kindergarten level. Not that C-level executives need to talk at a kindergarten level, but to make it as simple as possible. And before I knew it, I had attained a certain level of success in my mid-20s. And then from working within the dot-com bubble, as that was referred to, I wound up transitioning after September 11th into the media industry, working alongside companies that were doing video streaming. This is a time before YouTube was even YouTube, and building out what we now call new media generation, or things that we take for granted, keywords, SEO. These are things that did not exist at that time. From moving from New York City, I wound up working for basically the Clearwire Corporation and building out WiMAX networks across the United States, 50 cities. And I was part of a team that was deploying the very first smart electric meters wirelessly across the US. From that, I wound up starting my own company, focusing on telecommunication infrastructure in rural American communities, working with electric co-ops and municipalities, and building out smart automated infrastructure for utility automation. And I was at a point in that career where I was building cell phone towers, digitizing substations, but I had to build data centers. And in order to build data centers, I needed data centers to be a lot less expensive. And so I wound up attracting close to $60 million in investment and started TMG Core. TMG Core, for those that know what that is or don't, it was using a dielectric fluid for data centers out in rural areas for the edge. Instead of needing like 15,000 square feet for a megawatt of load in a data center, we were able to deploy that with close to 550 square feet for 1 megawatt. And that put us on the roadmap. Company had huge valuations, partnered with Intel, Microsoft, Dell, HPE. I was the chief strategy officer. I started that company in 2018. I left the year prior to joining American Lithium Energy. I took my exit. I always know when to step back and bring on seasoned executives to take the next wave of growth. And while I took that year off, I traveled internationally as a consultant, an advisor to investors, and Dr. Fan at American Lithium Energy found me, asked me to help commercialize his company. After 16 successful years as a research and development and manufacturing company of lithium ion battery cells. And that evolved into what I do now as the VP of Operations and Strategy, which is running the business. And how do you scale? How do you put manufacturing in place? And how do you bring battery cell manufacturing to the United States, which there's very few companies that are doing right now successfully. There's my journey.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And what a neat journey. So you stepped away and you got back into it.
Oh my God. Yeah, I thought I was done, but no, I think I have a couple more in me in this, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the adrenaline, and I love giving back, being able to help.
Yeah, I haven't found many, there are many founders, that exit or, early, with large exits. They have the ability to stay out of the game. Can't do it. You got to get back into it. That's the adrenaline rush. Well, what is your day-to-day role? What does that entail for ALE?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So at the end of the day, as a VP of Operations and Strategy, it would almost be the equivalent of the commercialization officer. We have that C-suite. So from a commercialization perspective, I'm responsible for not only the revenue in a sense of how we communicate to the outside world, but also how does that go through our process of providing battery cells to our customers. We just don't sell battery cells to sell battery cells, like buying Duracell or Energizer, but rather we work with the military, major government primes, and major corporations within their OEM divisions to integrate our battery cells into their advanced platforms. And so there's a lot of engineering that goes into the development of battery cells and packs to go into those types of applications. So as the responsibility of program director over these various projects, and then overseeing the day-to-day operations of our manufacturing from an optimization, efficiency, yield. Even now, as we're expanding into a mega factory and potentially a gigafactory, that would fall within my responsibilities of that expansion and making sure we have all of the proper resources, both internal and external, to make that happen. So at the end of the day, it's running the organization to achieve the objectives of the mission.
That's great. A lot on your plate with that.
Yes.
Manufacturing and then working with the government. Always interesting. What differentiates you from other, lithium battery manufacturers that are out there?
Number one, we're made in the US. That's a big deal. But even then, people say, well, really, what's the differentiator? Well, the differentiator is that our battery cells have always had the highest energy density and power in the market for years.
Why is that? Like, what is that just the materials used, or?
We're constantly being pushed to provide the next generation technology for the warfighter, because we've had a historical track record of success and very high energy density, power, and safety. We've just been brought in to programs over the years where we've had extreme success. But beyond the energy density, the powerful cells that we have, we also are the safest cells on the market globally. We have one technology called 0 volt that allows you to take our lithium ion battery cells to 0 volts. You can't do that with traditional lithium ion batteries. Did you know that?
I did not.
So most of the lithium ion batteries, if not all of them, when they ship them for safety, they can't ship at 0 volts, because when you take a lithium ion battery to 0 volts, meaning you take out all its energy, it starts destroying itself in the inside of the battery cell. So the safe number that the industry as a whole has said that you can ship battery cells is 30% state of charge. So that's why when these battery cells are shipping and there is some sort of accident that leads to thermal runaway, that's why you have all the fires and the explosions. It would be like almost shipping a car with gasoline in the tank on a ship, right? Or on a plane or a train and what have you. So our safety technology, 0 volts, allows us to ship cells safely at 0 volts and do a lot of other unique things, like instead of having a reserve battery on perhaps a missile platform or a rocket platform that may have to sit there for 10 to 20 to 30 years, and you only use that battery once, discharge it, and even if you bring it back, you can't use it. 0 volt allows you to use cells in a reserve capacity. But beyond 0 volt, our other technologies, which we I think we have over 100 plus patents now that have been enforced, is our safe core and negative thermal coefficient. Imagine a lithium ion battery cell that there's no flame or smoke. whether it be nail penetration, bullet penetration, crush, and what have you. So these differentiators are really, really a big deal, especially the high and low temperatures of our cells. So from a performance perspective, that's what makes us unique.
And no one else is doing that. Like you are it.
We are at the tip of the spear. There's a few US based manufacturers that are doing well with what they're trying to do, but it's one thing to make cells from an R&D perspective, but it's another thing to make cells from a production perspective. Right. So we are leading the space with production consistency with what we're bringing to the market, but the zero volt safety technologies and others, these are technologies that are unique to American Lithium Energy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So obviously you said some cool things there. What is the military, where do you find that bond with where the government appreciating your product? What are the segments or the products that really make this powerful?
Absolutely. So when you take a look at military applications, it's a number of areas. If you looked at the percentage of business that we have, it's primarily aerospace. So within aerospace, we could break that down into UAVs. You can break that down into satellites, small spacecraft, lunar rover vehicles. So that may not be a military application, still government, it's NASA. Electrification of aircraft, which we're working right now with NASA. So electrifying the big engines on there. Those are sweet spots. Outside of aerospace, another sweet spot is directed energy. We've got cells right now that we're in possession of that we could do upwards to 100 C discharge. That's 100 times the discharge that cell is capable of in a minute or less. So directed energy, we're seeing more and more platforms being worked on and potentially brought to market or brought to theater. Another area is wearables. We do a lot with conformable wearable batteries, small prismatic cells, and then there's mobile energy storage. Imagine mobile energy storage on a trailer or maybe on a naval ship, things along those lines. But those are really our sweet spot. Electrification's happening in the military, and we're leading that march for providing the cells to go into the packs.
Batteries are heavy, Are yours, because they're higher density, are you able to, carry more power within a battery with the same weight? Is there a weight trade-off there?
There is. You can have one of twofold. So with greater energy density in a battery cell, call it like an 18650 cell, small cell, most commonly used cell for things like UAVs or spacecraft and what have you. If I could give you 40% more capacity or greater than what you're currently buying off the shelf, it could do the following. I can either reduce the weight and the load, or that increased energy density gives you more flight time, more performance time, and what have you. And that's a big deal, especially when you want longer longevity with your platforms and what have you. So it's a trade-off, but typically the customers are going for the longer runtime that these cells can produce.
Now, what would be the difference, as someone who's not super wise on the battery market, like the Tesla batteries, lithium, obviously different, there's a little bit of difference there, but what is the big difference from your perspective?
Yeah, from our perspective, it's the proliferation of the electric vehicles in this market. More and more vehicles are being manufactured, and we're chasing the price as low as we possibly can get. So safety is very important in our electric vehicles that we drive, like my Model 3. So some of the chemistries that are being used are what's considered safer technology, LFP and what have you, but they typically have not as high energy density and power as things like the cells that we're producing with silicon and mixing it with things like NMC or LCO or whatever the other chemistries that we may have. And those batteries also for Tesla tend to be a lot bigger than the types of cells that we make right now. Doesn't make our cells any better, but they're really charging towards low cost. We're charging towards higher battery performance, and there's somewhat of a divide. My cell is sold as a premium to the military because they're used to buying products at premium prices, whereas that premium price in the electric vehicle market, especially for somebody like Tesla, we can't necessarily compete because we don't have as great a scale at manufacturing, but two different types of batteries for two different types of markets.
And where do you get, the core material to work on these batteries? That's odd, a lot of times you hear the environmental concerns. How do you acquire that?
Absolutely. So, as you know, geopolitically, there's tensions going on with China. So, the US industrial base, including its manufacturers like us, are shoring up our not only domestic supply chains, which are coming from places like the Lithium Valley is starting to extract lithium up here in the Salton Sea. If we can't get a domestic source, because that domestic source is being built up, like our battery cell manufacturing capability, we'll source products from Japan, South Korea, Europe, other places in the world. And the Defense Logistic Agency has done a really good job in helping smaller manufacturers such as ourselves find the right supply chain, but most importantly, helping us ensure we have that supply chain in place as we grow our manufacturing capabilities.
Interesting. Do you see that there's going to be a supply chain shortage of the raw materials needed? Because it seems like batteries are growing. California wants to go all electric, for example. That's going to require a lot of batteries.
Yeah, I do. What a lot of people don't realize, especially since this is a defense focused show, is that unfortunately, I think the last statistics showed that there's close to 40 days worth of lithium ion batteries for the US warfighter should war break out today or tomorrow. So yes, there's gonna be a scramble, especially for things like cobalt and some of these other rare earth minerals that we're using. But I also believe that in one day, David, you and I will be much older men, and we'll be looking at this podcast in 5 years, 10 years, maybe further out, and we'll look back and see how accurate we were with our predictions. But I'm one of the opponents that are saying that I don't see lithium ion batteries dropping the price completely, that become, very low cost commodity items. I see the opposite. I mean, at some point when rare earth minerals really truly become rare, and when we start deploying sensors on everything and everyone that connects back to that edge data compute that I just came out and brought to market, you're talking billions upon billions of batteries, not millions and millions upon batteries. And as a result, that's only going to drive the price up. Wouldn't you think? Absolutely it is. And so if power mobility is where we're going as a world, you're going to see a reversal in price at some point here. And I think that's where you're going to start having trade-offs between other renewable technologies. Lithium ion is here to at least 2040, according to the DoD. They're not changing things up. But at some point in the next 10, 20, 30 years, I don't see a continued downward spiral. I see a reversal going up, which only makes these minerals that much more precious, which means we're going to need to start figuring out how to manufacture, perhaps as wild as this may say, batteries on the moon using regolith, or maybe with some of the asteroid retrieval programs that we've successfully implemented and gone through, that the materials from these things could help us here. But right now, until these geopolitical issues go away in the present moment, yeah, you're going to have shortages, which makes finding those materials and securing them that much more valuable.
So does the DLA do all that for you, or do you actually go specifically to the countries and the mines and the organizations and line up that supply chain yourself?
We have to line that up. And that's what's really hard, Dave, is that it's one thing having a battery cell company and developing the world's most advanced chemistries that go in that battery. That upon itself is a huge undertaking. And then once you get your chemistries right and people start buying those chemistries, you got to start building these factories. And that's almost like two different paths. And so us having to have that weight of having not only to secure all these materials, but then having to build the facilities to then manufacture these products it's not easy. And organizations like the Defense Logistic Agencies will point us into the right direction, but it still falls on us to be able to secure not only the materials, the equipment, and the personnel to make these. So if anyone is thinking about starting a battery cell manufacturing company, I really think twice, because we've been doing this for 18 years and just now starting to see major commercial success. Over the last 7 years, countless battery cell companies tried to go public and have failed. So to answer your question, we're having to do this all on your own.
Maybe don't go public then.
Right. Maybe so. Too prematurely.
Yeah, that's right. Which did happen a lot
Yeah.
as of late. Yeah, that's very cool. Well, with the, building up the government sounds or building up factories and taking care of that, it does sound like you've been able to have some success with the government for grants to help produce this. Can you talk a little bit about your journey with getting funding for from the government?
Sure. Over the last 7 to 8 years, believe the number is that we've been successful in close to $30 million worth of government programs that are specifically tied to the Department of Defense. The second was the California Energy Commission. We were awarded a significant grant last year to help with our ramp up. And then we recently applied for a DOE grant that we should hear notification of awards in August. So we have gone after government money. It's great to see that the monies are being available to groups such as ourselves. The task is not easy, and the government's gotten smart. There's a matching requirement on a lot of the money coming out of the DOE grant. So it's not like just free money. You got to go out and have some sort of commercial success and either have the money in the bank to use yourself as your matcher or go out and raise money from others.
Yeah, it definitely helps, but definitely you definitely have to work through that. Well, as you've worked now on your own years in the military, as a seasoned executive and veteran, what leadership principles have helped you become successful? And if you were to mentor the next generation, veterans coming out of the military, what would you offer for them?
Number one is beyond transparency is really integrity and resilience. I can give you, we call him my former CEO, and he'll laugh if he watches this because I give him credit. And CMG was not an easy opportunity to go through. I mean, we were blowing stuff up, prototyping stuff, and it got acquired this year by a very large 100-year-old company. But he used to always say there are four T's. There's time, there's talent, there's tools. But the one T I can't give you is tenacity. You got to have it. You got to earn it. And with tenacity, right, the ability to just go for it is resilience, but most importantly, a commitment to excellence. This is about not ourselves, but about our national security. And I really believe the people that really get that the most are veterans. It's within our DNA. And so as we foster a culture of transparency and I like to call it open communication and collaborative ideation. This is not about one person. This is not about, how great I am and what we're doing in the world, but this is really about making a better future for us all. And batteries are in everything. And so if you want to get into an industry that's like the gold industry, like gold mining industry, this is it. And this is the time to get into it. But study chemistry, study electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, study the sciences. It's not that difficult. But this would be something I would seriously encourage people to get into. Maybe not to start their own companies yet, but it really is, this industry needs more honesty and transparency, versus deception and what I've seen as false promises that never materialize and countless amounts of money is being invested, whereas companies like us are actually doing it. And if we can do it, anyone can do it.
That's great. Well, where are these trends? I mean, where are the trends going in the battery industry, especially in the defense side, but just generally lithium batteries? What are we going to see in the next 3, 5, 10 years?
Electrification of everything. It's coming. IoT, Internet of Things, you're going to start seeing sensors on everything and everyone's. Commercial and industrial buildings will start seeing energy storage inside the buildings, right up against the building management systems and the HVAC systems, and being able to provide resilient power to the surrounding communities. So microgrids you're going to see. You're going to see a time where even the premise where you and I live will have energy storage, whether it's in the neighborhood connected to our home or having the energy storage and blessing others with the extra capacity. That's what Elon's doing with virtual power plants. But here's the big one. When you start electrifying planes, which is happening, right? They want to have all electric planes by 2050. You have to start electrifying the airports. You have to start electrifying the ports where the ships are pulling in. You got to start electrifying the highways and the transportation centers. And then most importantly, you just got to start, electrifying things like trains. if you follow the PTTA, ports, trains, transportation, and airports, that will take you through every community in America. And that's what you're going to see is the electrification of everything. And when the energy storage is on the ground, there's programs at JPL and NASA and the military where you can start wirelessly beaming electricity to the ground, the power of the vehicles, which you've probably seen with the electrification 2050 vision that they have. That's what's coming, and it's an exciting time, but I really hope we see more augmented reality, meaning moving away from the phone and using technology to make your world a little bit better of a place that's not in your face, but that's all going to come from electrification.
And is that battery technology changing, or more just the ability to take that energy and apply it to different use cases like you just shared?
Both. Unique battery manufacturing techniques are coming out where you can build batteries into different shapes and sizes. But at the same note, as we start moving past, call it 500, for those of you that are watching, when you say like 500 watt hour per kilogram, it's a very high energy density. I mean, right now we're right around 400 watt hour per kilogram. But when you start getting over 500 watt hour per kilogram and start moving even higher, like 1,000 watt hour per kilogram, you're going to start moving into lithium metal. You're going to start moving into things like lithium sulfur. And what if new manufacturing techniques exist today that could make its way to the mainstream of lithium ion battery cells, where you can use laser light to create graphene carbons around your lithium, around your silicon, around your various materials like sulfur, and that highly conductive graphene connected to each other within the cell is even higher energy dense. So you're going to see new ways of building batteries emerging as we start going past 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 and so forth. So yeah, over.
Yeah, well, I hadn't even thought of that. That's very cool. Well, what is, as you're, in this company, what do you enjoy most about, working for ALE?
Oh my God. So like for years, I've been a huge NASA guy. I love NASA. I love space. I love the military. I've had friends that worked at Raytheon and Lockheed and Northrop, and I've always just marveled at the things that they're building on. And mind you, I've built amazing things over my career, but you can look it up online. But the fact that I get to work on all these systems now, and they all need power, so they bring us in to help them design this stuff. And so it's more than just providing the batteries, it's building the next generation of stuff that we're all going to use for our everyday life. And so for me, we're heading into a world of space. Our phones, 6G, everyone, is satellite-enabled phones. That's a lot of satellites we're going to be deploying with ground-based segments. So to be involved in that, for me, I feel like a little kid and so blessed to get to do this. But it's a great level of responsibility, especially when I go and speak at places like the Pentagon. It's an eye-opener, and it's humbling at the same time.
Well, that's great. I agree. It's cool working on that stuff. Well, I'm still waiting for you to get, a battery that I never have to plug this thing in. Just it works.
Right. Wireless energy, right?
That's what I'm waiting for. Just in perpetuity. It's just going. Well, awesome. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we're going to have today. But before we wrap it up, how would folks follow you and/or American Lithium Energy?
Absolutely. You can go to our website at AmericanLithiumEnergy.com. We also have a LinkedIn page and a page on X. If you want to reach out directly to me, it's william.hadala at AmericanLithiumEnergy.com, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about your battery needs.
Well, fantastic. Amazing. It's been fun. Really enjoyed this conversation. Let's keep in touch, and thanks for joining.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Take care, William.